Hi and welcome to today's episode in which I have a crack at another fan request. If you've watched the peanut butter and jelly cookies recipe, I mentioned a friend had given me the idea. She's been at it again and given me the idea to have a go at making salame al cioccolato. If you speak Italian, you'll have hopefully figured out that today is all about chocolate salami. Apart from chopping up all of the ingredients, it's going to be a fairly low effort, quick, simple little recipe. The principle is to have lots of tasty bits bound together in chocolate and then shaped into kind of a log and then sliced up. I'll introduce you to the ingredients that I'm going to use, but do feel free to put anything you like in here. Anything's going to be tasty, I reckon. I was kind of inspired by the granola that I did. I'll put the link in the description. So I'm going to base it on the orange chocolate and ginger granola that I made. So I've gone for dark chocolate on this one. If you're making it for a vegan, just check your ingredients and make sure there's no animal products in it. Got a tablespoon of dried orange peel. So these are just oranges that have been peeled and then dried. 2 pieces of crystallized stem ginger. So it's just ginger that's been poached in sugar syrup. 50 grams of dried apricots. 50 grams of ginger snap biscuits. So these are like a really crunchy, crisp biscuit, they're flavoured with ginger. Got 30 grams of pretzel sticks. I just wanted a kind of salty element in there as well. Got 80 grams of toasted almonds and hazelnuts. I bought this on a whim the other day. It's like a pre-mixed chocolate espresso martini. So I bought that with the intent of drinking it, but I'm going to sling a little bit of that into the mix. I'm basing this loosely on a recipe that I found on prettysimplesweet.com. I'll pop a link to the recipe in the description for you, but I'm changing up most of the ingredients apart from the chocolate, but I'm keeping the ratios around the same. I need to melt the chocolate and butter together. You can either do this in a double boiler on the stove, so have a pan of hot water and then chocolate and butter in a bowl on the top, or you can do it in the microwave. I'm going to try do it in the microwave just because I think it's been years since I did it that way, so it's always good to try these things out again. I've got 2 100-gram bars of chocolate. I've left them in the plastic because I'm just going to wallop them on the side. Make sure it's a heat-proof bowl. Pieces are a little bit irregular, but so if you want, feel free to chop it manually so you can get them more even. I've got 90 grams of vegan butter. I'm just going to chop it down into smaller cubes. Give that a very light mix together. And then I'm going to put this to the side while I chop everything up, because I think it's probably a smart idea to have everything prepped and ready. So I've got the orange peel. Just going to chop through it, using the flat of the blade to break it down a little bit. I've got all of the orange peel chopped down into finer bits. I've got 6 of the ginger snaps. Got all the biscuits broken down into sort of, littler pieces. And do the same with the pretzels. All the pretzels are in nice little pieces. So I've got blanched hazelnuts, and then unfortunately I only had almonds with skins on, but I think it should be okay. And then I put them in the air fryer at 180 degrees C for about 10-12 minutes, something like that, and just shaking them every few minutes so they don't burn. I'm just going to smash them with the flat of the blade. Keep your cutting edge angled slightly into the board, just so then there's no risk of you cutting your hand, and then just chop that through. There's the nuts all lovely and chopped. So there's some big bits, some dusty type bits. The reason I've done the sort of dry stuff first is in my mind I'm thinking if I chop the fruit, they're going to stick together. If I have some kind of dusty bits in the bowl, I'm hoping that that will kind of coat each piece of the fruit and the ginger, so it won't clump together as much. And the apricots, I'm just going to cut those down into sort of little chunks. So that's the apricots all chopped down, lovely little tiny pieces. I'm just giving them a nice sort of rub together, almost like if you're rubbing in butter when you're making pastry. And I think my idea is working because it doesn't seem to be clumping together. And then same with the stem ginger. Just cut that down into smaller chunks. So again, some bigger bits, some littler bits. Just sort of picking it and rubbing it together, seeing if that does anything. And I think it is, because I can't feel any huge clumps of anything. I'm going to heat 6 tablespoons of plant milk with a splash of the booze. Now the original recipe doesn't say to do this, but I'm thinking if I put cold milk into the hot chocolate, hot melted chocolate, it's going to seize. So I'm just going to warm it slightly just so it's not going in there freezing cold, because this has been in the fridge. Experience tells me that putting cold stuff into melted chocolate just makes it go really grainy and weird. 2 tablespoons of coffee liqueur. Put that a bit of a mix. Once I've melted the chocolate, then I'll ping that for maybe 30 seconds or so, maybe 15 and then another 15 if necessary. I'm gonna make my roll in baking paper, so I'm just gonna lay that down so then everything's ready to go. You can also do it in cling film as well. Time to melt the butter and chocolate, and I think it's probably sensible to do it in 30-second blasts. I know that sounds really tedious, but you don't want to burn the chocolate. So do 30 seconds, pull it out, stir it, put it back in, and yada yada until it's all melted. Probably won't take more than 2-3 minutes, I don't think. So give this a good mix together. So you can see it's probably going to happen quite quickly. So it's happening quite quickly. So we'll just give that one more final stir just to make sure there's no chunks of chocolate or anything, which there isn't. It looks gorgeously velvety. Yum! Okay, so I'll put that to the side and I'll ping the milk and booze. I'm just going to pour the milk in, give it a good stir, give it nice and even. Now it's just a case of mixing the chocolate into the dry mix. And just give that really good mix together. Make sure every bit's coated nice and evenly. Then spoon the mixture into the paper. And then attempt to roll this up. So I'm kind of pulling it into, so it's hanging, just to get everything into one part. I'm making a total mess of this. I don't know how to do this. Right. Covered in chocolate. So I've got it in a tube, and then I'm going to squinch the ends. And squinching it will compact it a little bit. Popped in a plastic tub, because then just to protect the fridge from any chocolate explosions. Popped that in the fridge, and that'll be in there for a good few hours, so it can set firm. It's about 3 p.m. at the moment, so it's probably going to be in there until 8, something like that. It needs a good few hours to set hard again. To make it a bit easier, you could probably do that in like a loaf tin, you know, that you'd bake a loaf of bread in, just to make it a bit easier rather than having to roll it like that. And then just take it out and, yeah. Wouldn't be the salami shape, but it will be a bit less frustrating than that was. It's the following day, and it's time to dust some icing sugar onto the salami and then stuff it in my gob. After finishing the salami yesterday, I then went straight into another video. I made some like Mediterranean flavoured polenta topped pies, which were incredible. But I then got hit by a massive wave of tiredness by the time I sat down at 6 and was like, I can't do any more tonight, so I'm gonna pick it back up today. So here it is. So it's all set. I've had no collapses or anything, which is amazing. Oh dear. Yeah, I worried that was gonna happen. We'll do some surgery, it's fine. So with any gaps, I'm just going to, you know, pull some of the stuff off the paper and patch it. So here we have it. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to dust it with icing sugar, powdered sugar if you're in the US, but really fluffy, light stuff, just to give it a bit of a neater finish. I'd thought about maybe popping in some spices or something to dust it with, but then change my mind in the end. But you know, you can definitely do that. If you wanted to intensify the orange flavour, you could even grind some of the dried orange peel if you've got a coffee grinder or a pestle and mortar, just so it's really dusty and fine. Mix that with the sugar and sprinkle that on. That would be really good. Excuse me while I interrupt myself for just a second. It's been about a week since I made the salami. It's long gone and I'm really sad about it because it was so good. But the day after, I was eating a tangerine and thought, oh, I'll try and dry the skin and see if I can make tea or something with it. So I just put them in little dishes and then popped them on the central heating. Left them on there overnight, and by the next morning, they're really crispy. Apart from using it to make tea, I suddenly thought, oh, what if I grind that down into a spice and then I can use that. So for example, on top of cocktails, or in this case, maybe mix it with icing sugar, and then you've got a kind of sweet and then slightly orange flavour on the outside as well. On citrus fruits, you've got the outside, in this case the orange bit, that's the peel, and that's got all of the flavour oils in it where you get that delicious taste from. And then the inside, the white part's called the pith. The pith is quite bitter. So if you've seen the lemon butter video that I did, you'll have seen me trying to get around that bitter flavour. If you want to try doing this with normal oranges, what you could do is get a speed peeler or any kind of vegetable peeler and try and peel it with that. And then if necessary, get a very sharp blade. And I'd use a smaller blade just so it's easier to handle. Lie it flat on something, and then it's a bit like you're filleting a fish, like you're taking the skin off a fish. So you push the knife against slightly under the pith, and that should separate the peel and the pith. Leave you with just the tasty part. Because on tangerines and clementines, satsumas, whatever, smaller oranges, the pith's quite thin, so I think it's going to be okay. And there's lots of oils in these, so I think that's going to sort of overpower the bitterness from the pith. I can use my trusty little grinder. It should be probably for coffee, I use it for spices, but you can definitely do it in a pestle and mortar as well. So I'm just going to break the pieces down a touch. I've got too much reflection, sorry I can't get you a great shot, but let's blitz it up. Let's have a wee look. Oh, that colour. Oh wow, that's stunning. Very punchy orange kind of flavour. Yes, I wish I had that idea. Oh, when I was making the salami, there's a very mild bitterness there, but I did put quite a lot in when I tasted it. So I think if you did 1 tablespoon of icing sugar and then half to 1 teaspoon of the powder, mix that together, maybe do half, test it, and then do the other half if it needs it. And I think that's just going to really enhance the orange flavour that's in there already from the slices. And now it's back to the salami. I'm going to use a teeny tiny little sieve to do this, just to, you know, get out any little lumps or anything. So just dust it quite generously with the powdered sugar. I'm going to turn it over and put something there just so I can lean it on. Do the sides. Should have maybe done the bottom first and then it wouldn't have messed up the finish, you Wally. So that seems to be nicely covered. I've got a very quick little tip for you. If your wooden chopping boards are starting to look a bit dry and sort of tired, a bit sorry for themselves, get a paper towel with some oil on it, I'm just using sunflower oil, just rub it on. You can see, so that's the bit I haven't done. But yeah, it just brings out the grain again. It's time to slice this thing open, see what's inside. It's pretty uneven, so I'm just going to do quite a big chunk off there, just to neaten it up. Ooh, yum. So that's worked really well. It seems to be evenly coated everywhere, and there's all sorts of different textures there. Let's have a taste of this. Ooh. Stunning. The flavours are really tasty, which makes sense because they're all really tasty ingredients, but together, yum. And nothing is dominating, like the orange isn't too strong, the hazelnut isn't too strong, but they're all there. Everything can be tasted. The pretzels and the biscuits, the ginger snaps, I guess they've absorbed a lot of the moisture from the vegan butter and probably the chocolate as well. So they've kind of softened a bit. Not quite as crisp as I thought they might be. But that's absolutely fine, not a problem at all. It reminds me of fudge, the chocolate texture. It would work well as like a truffle bonbon petit four kind of thing. So you could pack everything into a baking sheet, let it go, you know, let it set for a few hours, and then tip it out onto icing sugar, flip it and do the other side, and then cut that into little squares if you wanted to have, you know, if you're having a dinner party or a party that you need to bring something to. That would work really well. You know, some things can be so sweet it hurts your teeth. There's none of that, which is surprising because there was a lot of very sweet things in there. I've been thinking of other flavour combinations that you could try, and I thought maybe coffee and walnut, so use like a Tia Maria or a Kahlua, that kind of thing, in the chocolate mixture and some toasted walnuts, and then biscuits and whatever else you want in there. You could even crush down some coffee beans, like roasted coffee beans, like into nibs, and put those in with it. That would be really good. I'm a big fan of chocolate covered espresso beans. I bought some dried limes from the Indian supermarkets. They're just limes that have been dehydrated. So maybe chunks of that with some dried cranberries, and you could do maybe coconut, almond, that kind of thing in white chocolate. Because white chocolate is so sweet, it would, I think the tanginess, the sourness and the tartness from the lime would go really nicely with white chocolate. You could do the same with dried lemon. That would be really tasty. Lemon and dark chocolate goes nicely, and also peppermint. So I don't know, maybe get some peppermint candies, break those into pieces, and then dried lemon or even candied lemon peel with dark chocolate. That's a few ideas for you, and feel free to let me know in the comments what you're going to try or what you think might work. Ooh, the ideas just popped in my head of using that as a base for a cake or like a dessert. So maybe, you know, like a cheesecake type of thing. So the custard that I made for the rhubarb and custard tarts, I think that would be quite nice on top of that. Ooh. As I suspected, the most laborious part was chopping everything down and then maybe getting it into the paper as well. But if you're not so fussy about it being a log shape, you could definitely just pack that into, you know, like a loaf tin, or maybe even into, that's a yogurt pot. So you could maybe pack it into there, maybe grease it just so you can slide it back out again. Yeah, that kind of thing would work very well, I think. I also wonder if it would work to let it cool more and set more in the bowl, and then mold it into shape and then wrap it in paper or cling film. Because the way I did it, everything was kind of warm and just very difficult to contain. But I think if it's cooler, because it's still very soft. I mean, I'm sure I'm not going to do it because I don't want to destroy the look of it, but you could probably cut that and shape it into little balls or something like that. So yeah, maybe let it cool much further down in the bowl, and then you can manipulate it into shape that way. For more treats that are maximum taste but minimum animal suffering, hit subscribe, tap the bell icon, and check out this one.